Hello, I'm making a video and wanted to talk to my buyers about being strategic about writing offers, especially if it's for a hot property, one that's getting multiple offers, having a ton of traffic, that sort of thing. So look at this is on one of the properties that we just had on the market, went into multiple offers, and there's a lot of things that we can learn from winning offers. So if we don't ask questions to the sellers, a lot of times we don't know this. So I will always ask for you and find out when is their ideal closing date and things like that. So if you really want this property, we can try to match it as much as possible. But what I wanted to talk to you about is I'm going to show you an offer here. Offer price is super, super important, right? Like obviously a seller really cares about that, but there are other terms in a purchase agreement that are super important as well. So that offer price is probably the first thing they look at, but especially if they're looking at multiple offers, they are going to be looking at other terms too. So I wanted to walk through this. So this is the first page of a purchase agreement. As you can see on line 5, it says earnest money. So earnest money is kind of funny because in the state of Minnesota really protects buyers and their earnest money. So a lot of times they can get it back. There's different things in the purchase agreement and we can talk about that and what's written. Typically earnest money is 1%. You can increase that amount obviously over and look more attractive. And that's something kind of strategic to me because it's one of the first things that people see on the purchase agreement. And if you do have an inspection and it falls through, we got to talk through these details more. But most of the time, when you have an inspection and if it falls through, you do get your earnest money back. So we can talk more about that later. Obviously, we have the purchase price here. Down here is closing date. So if you are flexible with your closing date and we can ask the sellers what is ideal for them and try to match that, that is going to go, a lot of times goes a long way. Seller paid closing costs. So closing costs are typically 3% and you're absorbing those as the buyer. You're going to pay those, right? So you can ask the seller to pay some, all, or none of those closing costs. That is up to you. But if you have a hot property on the market and it's new on the market and you're asking for 3% closing costs or some of closing costs, you're going to really want to think about being strategic about that, okay? Inspections. So inspections, most of the time we're doing them, right? But it's your option. People waive inspections. They still do them. They might still do it, but it's not contingent. The home is not contingent on the inspection. So that is an option to you. Not a lot of people do that, but you should at least know your options. And then, you also, write in how many days you want for that inspection. And those are the amount of days that you have to do your inspection and have anything negotiated about your inspection, okay? So we see in this market, usually I see about 10 days written there, okay? But if you want to be more attractive and you want to speed that up for them, that's something that I look for when I'm taking purchase agreements and I have a listing. Are they willing to, put that down to 6 or 8? Or I just had one the other day do only 4 days. 4 days they have to have their inspector there and have everything done because if anything falls through, then I can put that property back on the market and they didn't hang me up for 10 days, right? Or hang the property up for 10 days. So this is something that you can be strategic about and I think it's smart. Also, sale of buyer's property. So if you go into multiple offers and you have a home still to sell, that cannot be such a great thing, right? If they have an offer that even is less than yours, but is not contingent on the sale, a lot of times people will do that. So it's super smart to have your ducks in a row, obviously, especially if you're looking at hot properties. So you don't have to be contingent on the sale of your home. But sometimes we have to do that and we can work around that and talk strategy. Okay, the last thing I want to talk to you about is this was written. It's an escalation clause. Now, I don't always see this and I don't always recommend it, but I at least want you to know the option. So an escalation clause basically reads something like this. My client is willing to pay $1,000 over the highest net offer that is submitted to this property up into X dollars, and you name it. So My broker actually hates these, but sometimes these work and sometimes these can be strategic. So let's say you put in an offer for $400,000 and it goes into multiples and you're actually really willing to pay $425,000. You could put in an escalation clause stating that, and then we would request to see the purchase agreement. So that is something strategic. I've had a lot of people say to me lately, not my clients, but other people, that they're losing out in offers. And then I asked them, yes, they said they, offered 15 grand over asking price. And I asked them, well, what'd you put for closing date? What was their ideal closing date? And what'd you do for inspection? Like, did you, bring those days down? And they didn't know. They didn't even know what they did. Their realtor didn't even talk to them about that. So these things are super important. Sellers are not just looking alone at that price. They're looking at other terms too. And that's how us as realtors, when we have listings, that's how we're presenting. We're letting people know the price, but we're letting them know other terms too. So I just really wanted my buyers to be educated about this, especially if you are looking at hot properties and a hot price point in a hot area, city, that kind of thing. So anyways, we will go through this in person, obviously, but I just wanted to record this just so you knew some basics. Any questions, of course, you let me know. Talk soon.